So how do you prepare for oral presentations? Well, stick around and we'll talk about just that. But first, good evening, Agile acquisition enthusiasts. Welcome back to the Underground Digital Tiki Bar. It's Friday night, and that means it's time for another episode of Agile Acquisitions and Alcohol. Cheers. So tonight I wanted to talk about how to prepare for oral presentations as part of a competition. And oral presentations have become a lot more popular over the last couple of years as agencies are starting to think about how to be more innovative and more engaging with industry and try to lighten the load on the proposal preparation process. Try to say that 5 times fast. Took me 2 times. The oral presentation idea is you have vendors answer a series of questions and provide an overview of their capabilities or their approach. And then typically there will be an engagement or a Q&A session that follows. Oral presentations are probably easier than writing a very heavy written document, and you do have the opportunity to explain a little bit better than you would in a confined written package. But that is not to say they're easy, and quite a bit of work goes into it. So just a reminder to government folks who are issuing these oral presentations, do understand that it is taxing on companies that have to take some of their key players and their key engineers and dedicate them to some pretty rigorous preparation to be able to present effectively in the oral presentation portion of the acquisition. For companies that are pursuing these acquisitions, just know that simply having a good idea isn't going to be enough these days. Back when this first started, it really was a pretty light lift, and it was kind of jump in front of a camera or walk into a room, get asked some questions, and because you were a SME, you could answer them and then walk out. But now companies across the board have really upped their game. And if you want to be competitive, you need to up yours as well. So some of the things that you want to think about are who are the right people that need to be in the room to answer these questions? And you need to have a good representation. You certainly want to have individuals that are going to be part of the solution so the government doesn't feel like they're getting sort of a bait and switch solution, but also because they're going to understand the technology and the solutions better than someone who's brought in as like a professional speaker to answer some really hard questions. And at the end of the day, that's what this is about. But they also have to be charismatic and good public speakers and able to handle the pressure of presenting to potentially a board or panel of government individuals who are going to be asking the questions. You also want to have a representation of leadership in the company, someone who is going to kind of bring the culture of the company forward and explain why their organization is a right fit for that customer, for that problem. Then you want to make sure that you have some SMEs for various applications of your solution. So if there's a security component, which nowadays, when is there not, then you want to have a security expert, someone who can really deep dive or answer tough questions about how your solution is going to be effective and protecting the organization or not introducing additional risk. And then you want to have somebody who understands the business relationship, someone who can kind of bring this all together. Sometimes that's the same as the president or CEO of the company, and sometimes it's going to be someone who's more of an account owner, account executive. Now, keep in mind, there will oftentimes be limitations on the number of people that can be in the presentation, and there might even be constraints on who or what roles can be in that presentation. But after you've identified the list of the appropriate people that are going to be presenting, you want to make sure that those people have the opportunity to run through multiple times, and typically with the assistance of a coach, someone who can advise them on how they sound. I often tell folks when I'm working with them to, practice in a mirror or practice in front of a friend or a spouse, someone who's going to be brutally honest, but not try to guide too much on what you're saying. Just simply give feedback on how they receive the information. How do they hear you? Do you sound engaged with what you're saying? Are you saying way too many ums or ahs? Are you pausing or looking down too much? Having a coach or some external guidance to give you that kind of feedback is really helpful. It's also important to write out what you're going to say. Some people like to write out in a bullet form. Some people actually like to write out the entire script. I will say, when I have seen people use scripts, they tend to sound like they're reading a script, and you do want to come across personable. So if you're able to work from bullets or note cards, that's the way I would recommend it. Sometimes I'll suggest starting from a script and then actually working backwards from a script down to bulleted outlines, down to just note cards. If you absolutely have to have a script, then you're going to just have to practice it just like an actor or an actress would over and over again until you can speak to the words on that page very naturally and have the ability to kind of move in and out because you never know when you're going to get interrupted while giving your presentation. So that's the preparation piece of it. Finally, there's always going to be some sort of component of slides or demonstrations. Test, 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 and then have a backup plan. Assume your presentation's going to crash, your demo's going to fail. What are you going to do? Have a plan to show your capability in the best way possible, assuming the technology doesn't work. And on that note, know that you might be operating off of a bandwidth that is not the same that you're working on from home or from the office. You might be in a government facility. You might have limitations on the networks that you can access. So it's always a good idea to also have just a hard copy printout of the presentation you are going to give, just in case all else fails. And of course, in today's day and age with COVID and restrictions and people are traveling less and doing more virtual, try to remember all of the different challenges that can come up in your daily video chat conferences at work and understand that those same challenges could occur. Your internet could go out. Is there somebody who could back you up or speak on your behalf? Their connection might fail. You might have a bad video feed or a bad sound feed. So you want to make sure you have backup plans for all of those. And then finally, make sure all the distractions and interruptions are out of the way. So let the family know, keep the dogs out of the room. Don't have the kids running in the room in the middle of the presentation. Just block off that time and have whomever else is sharing your space with you understand that that space is going to have to be off limits and the noise kept down in the entire house for the duration of that presentation. So there you have it. Those are my recommendations for how to have a successful oral presentation. If you have any questions, shoot a note below or message me. Otherwise, give me a thumbs up if you like the video and don't forget to subscribe. And until next week, cheers.